Imagine walking into like a super stressful final exam, but instead of frantically reviewing flashcards, you're wearing a giant wreath of rosemary on your head.
I mean, yeah, that sounds completely ridiculous today.
Right. But for ancient Greek scholars, that was actually standard practice, to boost their memory. So today, our mission is to take the notes you shared and do a deep dive into the hidden history, the science, and the practical cultivation of a plant that is probably sitting in your kitchen right now.
Exactly. And our guide for the practical side is this great little story from the notes. It's about two students, Kesser and Steen. They just finished prepping a greenhouse for Tante Grun Aunt Green.
Yeah, Aunt Green. And they were rewarded with some fresh rosemary branches, right?
Mhm.
So now Kesser is going to teach Steen how to propagate them for his dad's barbecue.
It's honestly the perfect bridge between ancient botany and a modern backyard.
Right.
Like that jump from an ancient Greek exam room to Steen's dad firing up the grill, it isn't as massive as it seems. It all comes down to the plant's essential oils.
Okay, let's unpack this. How does a plant used for, modern marinades connect to the ancient world?
What's fascinating here is the history. Even the Latin name, rosmarinus, which means dew of the sea, hints at this deep Mediterranean history that dates back to like 500 BC.
Dew of the sea. I mean, I've always thought of rosemary as this tough culinary survivalist. It has such low moisture that you can completely dry it out and it still tastes incredibly intense. But how exactly does it hold on to those flavors so aggressively?
Well, it's a brilliant evolutionary defense mechanism. Think of those tough, needle-like leaves as tiny, tightly sealed thermoses.
Oh, wow. Thermoses.
Yeah. In the scorching Mediterranean sun, a broad, flat leaf would just lose all its water and oils to evaporation. By rolling its leaves into tight, leathery needles, rosemary locks in its aromatic compounds.
And those compounds are like specific oils, right?
Precisely. Specifically eucalyptol and alpha pine. Those compounds actually make up about 1 to 2% of the leaves.
So that signature camphor and pine flavor, the one that holds up so well in heavy marinades, is actually just the plant trying not to dehydrate.
Yeah, exactly. Which brings us back to how Kesser guides Steen to multiply these plants from those greenhouse cuttings. Because understanding that Mediterranean biology is the key to successfully propagating them.
Right. So Kessler lays out a really specific method for steam. He tells him to take a 10-centimeter cutting of fresh, non-flowering green top growth in late spring. Then he has him strip the leaves off the bottom 5 centimeters.
Which is a crucial step.
Yeah, but here's where it gets really interesting. Instead of buying a synthetic rooting powder, Kessler tells Steen to use willow water. I mean, how does soaking cuttings in water made from willow branches actually force a completely different plant to grow roots?
It's crazy, but willow trees are packed with natural rooting hormones, specifically indole-butyric acid and salicylic acid, which you might actually know as the active ingredient in aspirin.
Wait, really?
Yeah. When you steep willow branches in water, those compounds leach out. The salicylic acid protects the vulnerable rosemary cutting from infection, while the rooting hormones signal the plant cells to stop acting like a stem and start forming roots.
Okay, so we dip the bare stem in willow water. But wait, if we just establish that rosemary evolved in dry, rocky, dew of the sea conditions, aren't we risking drowning it by trying to grow it from a wet cutting?
That is like the most common mistake people make. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's exactly why Kesser insists on stripping those bottom leaves.
Oh, because if you bury leaves in wet soil, they rot.
Right, they rot. And that rot rapidly spreads up the stem to kill the whole cutting. Because it's a Mediterranean plant, it requires coarse sand and light, highly well-draining potting soil to survive that initial rooting phase.
You essentially have to mimic the rocky cliffs of Greece right there on your patio.
Yes, exactly. You keep it warm, give it indirect light, and let the soil dry out slightly between waterings. If you get that balance right, and prevent rot, those new roots will establish in just 2 to 4 weeks.
So what does this all mean? It means you don't need a degree in botany to turn a single branch into a thriving garden.
Definitely not.
By following Kesser's method with the willow water and the right soil, you can take a cutting from a friend and cultivate an ancient, flavor-packed botanical artifact right outside your kitchen window.
It completely changes how you look at your spice rack, honestly. And it leaves you with a final thought to ponder.
Oh, what's that?
If ancient Greek scholars were actively wearing rosemary garlands to boost their memory during exams, could the aromatic compounds sitting in our modern spice racks hold untapped cognitive benefits we've simply forgotten how to use?
That is wild to think about.
Right. Maybe Steen's dad isn't just making a delicious marinade. Maybe that rosemary smoke is making everyone at his barbecue a little bit sharper.